Let's go!
Talking trauma, that shit means nothing to me. Bro, from young, talking smart, but I knew they ain't giving out nothing for free. Got to the crib around 3:30. Smooth talk, get on your knees.
First of all, boys, thank you so much for coming. It's been absolutely sick so far. Been a sick 24 hours. We got another day to go, but hopefully we can drop some gems here and show you a few things about customer acquisition. So I'll start off with a quick question. How would you feel if I handed you $100,000? Quite cool, right?
Pretty sketch.
Or would you prefer access to the skill set that allows you to make $100,000 repeatedly? What's more important than having money is knowing how to generate it consistently and have that on repeat. So if you run a business, which everyone here does, that's why we're here together, I'm going to show you as best I can the keys that we use at Pursuit Partners and through our career that we use to increase revenue for all the brands we work with. The same keys that have generated over 100 million in revenue for some of the biggest brands in the world. These are the brands that me and Nick have worked on together, or not all together for all of them, but the brands we worked on throughout our career. So hopefully there's some absolute gems we can share for all you guys to increase your revenue. So start with a quick story. When I first started in digital marketing, I literally couldn't sell anything to anyone. I worked with a few different clients, ran ads, got content, I could get views, but not many sales at all. And that's kind of one of the main problems that a lot of people face is I didn't actually know what made people buy. It's one thing to make content, it's another thing to make something that makes people buy. And essentially I want to tie that back to I didn't know how to create demand. Creating demand is the single most valuable skill set in business. Without demand, you don't have revenue generation. So that's what we want to cover in this video. If you have strong demand, revenue growth is easy. Without it, your business will flatline. So I've spent over 7 years in digital marketing trying to figure this out and trying to figure out what actually drives purchase behavior. Like what are the intricacies involved with that? Because it's one thing to run ads, it's one thing to produce content, get eyeballs, make content for brands. But if you can't actually generate that into sales, then you're not actually that valuable. So I studied this literally day and night, studied every course for 7 years, the algorithms, what hooks to use, advertising. I've spent $21 million of other brands' money just on meta ads. So we've got a few lessons that we learned. Some things popped and some things didn't. So that's what I'll share with you. And that's how I built the demand engine. A recent framework that I built, the demand engine is the single most effective way that I've seen to drive revenue growth. And I've been silently testing this, building this in the background for like a month to 6 months to a year. And some of the clients that I've been testing these actual advertising frameworks on. This year we took a supplement company from zero. They couldn't make any sales before we started with them. And then they did $250K a month within a couple of months. We did a hair care brand that was featured on Shark Tank. They doubled their previous monthly record with some of these frameworks. A matcha company that's actually in Coles and Woolies, we added 25% to their customer value within a couple of weeks. A fashion brand, global fashion brand, we added 1.25 million per month using these frameworks. A restaurant group, 395K additional revenue in 6 months, and a US fitness program that's actually based out of the US. We added 1.2 million in 6 weeks using some of the theory that I'm going to share with you guys in this. So as you can see, it's quite versatile. So hopefully it relates to the businesses that you guys have. So in the next few minutes, I'll hopefully give you the keys and the framework that I use to replicate the results for you guys and your businesses and your clients ultimately. So there's 4 things that create this whole ecosystem that we need to focus on. Narrative, which is essentially what's the message that we're crafting and putting out into the market, and what is the story that we're telling. But keep in mind that this narrative has to be built on something that creates demand, not just gets eyeballs and attention. Second piece is the creative. How do we take that narrative and bring it to life? So Yash, that's something that your skill set would fit in perfectly. So if you think of these first 2 pillars as like a creative strategist role, if you're in the agency space, someone who has that creative mind. The third piece is distribution. How do we take the narrative and the creative we produced and get maximum eyeballs possible? That's not just organic is the trick of the trade recently, but whether that's advertising platforms, even blog posts in pretty much every channel possible. If you're a media buyer, which is something in digital marketing that you get trained up on the platforms, your main job there is getting maximum eyeballs possible for the minimum amount of cost, or we use a CPM metric. And then the fourth one is the economics. So it's the whole business unit, the numbers that tie the whole ecosystem together. How much can we spend to acquire a customer, and what's the distribution look like in a way that we're actually making profit, right? In this, I'm going to quickly focus on narrative, because if you don't have the narrative right, there's no point doing anything else. And the other three are usually a bit more custom, specific to your business that you're focusing on or the client that you're working with. So I want to get one thing clear. I know it's the hype right now, but getting lots of views, going viral, or running lots of ads and getting a lot of eyeballs on your content isn't necessarily going to save you. It definitely helps, but if you don't have the messaging right, it's not going to necessarily translate into revenue or sales. So there are people all around the world who get millions of views but can't generate revenue from it. It's all about signaling the right narrative that inspires a purchase. How do we guarantee that we're building the right message in the market and telling the right story? This is the demand engine. So it's a framework that I spent a lot of time building out. And essentially, to make it simple, I know it's a bit overwhelming, but if you can imagine this person, this image right in the middle, represents your ideal customer. So who are you going after in the market? And then from there, we've got 4 pillars that every transaction requires. I'm going to go into these in more detail. And then these are the 8 pillars that you basically need to hit in all of your content to create demand, essentially. So what I just showed you, the demand engine, is a psychology-backed customer acquisition process that is built to purely drive revenue, nothing else. It's not about the views, not about going viral. It's about taking that content and generating revenue off the back of it. And if you don't have this in place, or a thing to generate revenue and translate those eyeballs into sales, it's costing you a lot. It's costing you your revenue potential, wasted marketing budget. If you're investing a lot of money and you don't have the messaging right, I see this all the time when I jump into new brands, even brands that are spending $100,000 a month in marketing. There's a lot of wasted spend. You've got hundreds of hours of being invested. Your team's inefficient. You're losing customers, which I'll break down in more detail. You have a high CPA, which is every customer you're acquiring is too expensive. And then your customers are just confused in general. They don't really know what's going on. It's not clean. Another thing I noticed, which you guys will come across, is that we as humans, we are pretty predictable. So after $21 million in ad spend, there's a few intricacies in the way people operate and buy that we can draw out and draw repeated lessons from. In every single purchase that any single one of us will make, including from our laptops to all the camera gear we bought, to the cadence drinks that we bought, everything requires 4 things: status, trust, value, and desire. If you can create these 4 elements in the content you're producing, you'll scale very, very easily, right? But all these 4 words are quite ambiguous. Like, how do we create status? It doesn't feel very tangible and easy thing to do. And that is why I pulled out the demand engine, the 8 core pillars that are super easy to address, that essentially create these 4 things. These 4: status, trust, value, and desire. First one, social proof. As an example of this in the content you'll be doing is showing customers or people using your product or service that are having a great experience. People need to know that other people, at the end of the day, we're all sheep. We copy what other people are doing. If other people are doing it, it makes us feel like it's safe. That's social proof. Second one is credible advisors. Who has authority or credibility in your market, in your space, that's vouching for you? Third one is association groups. So they would be pockets of people that your ideal customer wants to associate with. We're all business owners, so we want to associate with other business owners. If you're an athlete, you want to aspire to be a group of runners, you need to have people in the content that your ideal customer wants to be like. Fourth one is fears. Every single one of us has fears, especially when buying things. Risk of looking silly, loss of money, failure, all these things. If you're not covering people's fears, then they're going to have objections and they won't convert at the same rate. Fourth is cost of problem, meaning the customer has to be very aware that by not solving the problem you help them solve is actually affecting them a lot. They're not reaching their potential, they're not making enough money, or it's just making their life less efficient in general. The next one is belief in a better future. If your customer can't see that your product or service isn't the vehicle to making their life better, they will never convert. So you need to make that very clear for them. Number 7 is a clear solution to the problem, which is your product or service. So your product or service is the gap that takes them, the vehicle that takes them to that better future. And the last one is the outcome or the tangible benefits that they will feel or see in their life after using your solution. They're the 8 things, and those 8 pillars is what create the demand engine and creates this customer conversion cycle where all we do is repeatedly hit each one of these 8 pillars in our marketing. Whenever I work with a new brand, the first round of ads is just go one by one and write a brief on each one of these. Because if you're missing one, your whole customer acquisition system is more efficient because I'll actually get into more detail. So, and that's literally it. One by one, I go round in all these 8 pillars. If you're hitting these 8 pillars consistently, you'll create status, trust, value, and desire in the mind of your consumer and create this web of trust where your product or solution is the connection to their life or solving that problem. All right. As I said, every time I work with a new brand or audit a new ad account, I jump in. These are the first things I look at least for the last 6 months or a year where we've got those case studies and those results. I'm not going to click on these, but that's literally what we did with EHP Labs. Yash actually helped on some of these. All I did to write these briefs, and by the way, this is a big client, and all I did to write the briefs, they love the ads. We just jump in, look at the pillar, think about how we could articulate that in an ad, and just got one produced for each pillar. That's literally all I did. And then wrote the briefs for these guys. But I know that's surface level, so I want to go a bit more technical as we're all business owners here and we like the intricacies. So if you think about this as a total addressable market, it's a map that shows you the opportunity in the market that you operate in. So this will be different for each one of you who operate in different markets, but there are pockets of customers. Each of these circles represents a pocket of customers that will never ever convert unless you show them serious amounts of social proof. Like you'll never convert these customers unless you address that. In the same way, there's a pocket of customers that sit here that will never ever become a customer or convert or give you money unless you address their fears, right? So you're actually missing out on pockets of customers. And even if you're hitting them with your content, if you're not hitting all the 8 pillars, it doesn't matter. These are the kinds of people that follow you for 3 years, sit on your email list forever, and they just won't ever buy because they sit in a pocket that you haven't addressed. Relating it back to the innovation cycle, Nick actually showed me to add this, which was a great addition, but this cycle shows the adoption of any product or service, right? So at the start, you got innovators. These are the people that will try a new supplement, a new product, a new tech software, even AI agents is the latest thing. They'll try it without needing much convincing. They're like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. Sounds cool, I'll give it a crack. But as you move into deeper pockets of the market, they require more convincing. They need more objections to overcome and they're more skeptical, they don't believe it. So these people are the ones that require more of the 8 pillars to be addressed for them to actually become a customer. So as you may have noticed with clients or people you work with, as you scale spend, your CPA blows out and you find that some things that used to work don't work anymore and you're not converting customers. It's because these customers are harder to address. But by hitting all the 8 categories of the demand engine, you'll be able to convert the whole opportunity of the market. And this is a more simplified demand engine of what some of the clients or potentially your guys' businesses will look like if you don't have all the 8 pillars. Compare the complete example to this one. You might have a little bit of social proof, you might articulate the problem solution, you might have a call to action and then maybe a sale here and there. The ability for a customer to leave your ecosystem or your buyer's cycle is so easy because you haven't attached to their life. You haven't shown them how you cover every single one of these pillars. So this is why customers are completely leaving, they're not converting, your CPA is blowing out. Another visual example is more skeptical buyers might have 7 objections to them purchasing. You might cover 5 of their objections, but if there's 2 that you miss that they're not seeing in your content, they hit a brick wall and they'll never convert. So that's why it's so important that we hit all the pillars. Now, just to clarify, this isn't some magic band-aid that if you hit all these, very basically, that you're automatically going to make $1 million. But if you have a good product or service, which is one of the core fundamentals of actually having a good business, marketing is the fuel that puts like fire on your already existing good thing and makes it better, right? So if you have that in place, implementing this demand engine is what will allow you to scale at maximum speed compared to anything else that I've seen on the market in the last 7 years. And when executed effectively, what you'll see is a reduced customer acquisition cost because you're addressing all objections and no leakages. You'll have a clear marketing strategy that you can go bang one by one, so you'll know exactly what to do next. You know exactly what ads, content, and emails to create. You'll outpace your competitors because you're addressing pillars that they're not. You will see a revenue increase and customers will be converting a lot easier than they were before. So, quick mathematical example to show you how this works. If we can reduce CPA, which is cost to acquire a customer, more of an advertising thing, but by 30% in an e-com business example, we can see example 1 here, customer acquisition cost of $50. After doing these content pillars, if we can drop customer acquisition cost by 30% to $35, if you're doing $250,000 a month in revenue, simply by changing that one customer acquisition cost metric, you'll see an additional $31,000 in pure profit by doing that. And I know some of you guys are more service-based businesses. If you can drop your cost per lead from $100 to $70 by this content framework, by hitting this correctly, if you're spending $30,000 a month here on advertising, or whether that's outreach or content, your qualified leads will go from 300 to 428. Keeping close rate the same at 20%, your closed deals will go from 60 to 85. And if you're running a 5K service, just a one-time payment, that'll take your cash collected from 300K to 425K simply by that 30% efficiency purely on the lead side, keeping all other metrics equal. So it's a big difference, right? And if you're like me, nothing scares you more than missing the mark of your potential. That's why we're all here and why we all hustle so hard, because it's scary, right? And if you're in business, you're called to serve your customers and market and make their life more abundant. There's a pool of customers out there that need you to solve their problems and make their life better. And the only way to serve those customers is if they know that you can help them. Not only just know who you are, but they need to know that you can help them. And the only way they know if you can help them, is if you hit all those 8 pillars, right? And that's what the demand engine is supposed to do. It fixes all those barriers. Quickly on the science level, Newton's third law, you might know this, but for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. It's scientifically proven. There are fundamental laws that exist within the world, and this is one of them that remains true, which we see. That's why we're here today. We're all on a weekend here grinding because we know this is true, right? So it's scientifically impossible for you to make less impact or more revenue if you make improvements to these 4 categories, which are outlined at the start. It's actually impossible. So, as we know, action is the bridge between who you are right now and where you could be. So let's start by taking serious action for the rest of this trip. That's why we're here. And you want to know the craziest thing about everything I just showed you? All I did to make this presentation was just use the 8 pillars, just one by one. I lined out the 8 pillars and I just made like 2 slides on each one. That's it. Simple as that. I didn't have to think about it. It took me an hour, maybe a little bit more. All I did was I created demand for this customer acquisition system that I've made for you guys simply by showing you social proof. I showed you that some of the case studies that we've had over the 6 months to a year. Association groups, I tied it back to founders and entrepreneurs. Third one, credible advisors. I showed you some of the high tier clients that me and Nick have worked on, who are the biggest in the world, top of the market, doing hundreds of millions in revenue. I addressed your fears by saying, if we don't hit our potential, that's one of the scariest things in life. I showed you the cost of the problem, which meaning you're not hitting your revenue potential, you're not helping the customers you're meant to do. The cost of the problem, I showed you a calculation of the missed opportunities in revenue in your businesses by not having this in place. The clear solution is the demand engine. The outcome and benefits is a better business, more revenue, and the belief in a better future was the motivational little bit at the end, basically. So that's all I did. And I'll leave you with one last thing, which will help you as a bit of a refresh. People will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, calm their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. This is written by Blair Warren, who's a famous psychologist, and he studies human behavior and basically put this sentence together on who are the most influential people in the world and what they stand for. So if you want to help inspire your customers and help the people you're meant to serve, become the person who addresses those things. So for those watching on YouTube, you can get access to the full system. We go in detail. There'll be a link in the description. And for all you boys, I'll send it all to you. And that's it. That's our demand engine by Pursuit Partners.
That was it. That was it.
Wow, that was scary.